You've just stepped into the Motivation Library, a place where struggles turn into stories of strength and dreams transform into destinies. Every book is a path, every chapter a step forward. Today, we walk a new path. Let's begin. Preface. Every dreamer begins with a spark, a whisper, a vision that refuses to die, even when the world tries to drown it. But here's the truth no one tells you. Dreams are not handed over. They are fought for. This book was not written in comfort. It was born from struggle, stitched together from the stories of dreamers who were told no, who were laughed at, doubted, silenced, and even broken, yet refused to quit. Some of their names you know, many you don't, but each of them carved their path through barriers most of us can't imagine. I wrote this book because I believe the greatest tragedy in life is not death. The greatest tragedy is the dream that never lived. The book unwritten, the song unsung, the invention abandoned, the life unlived. Breaking barriers, building dreams is not here to entertain you. It is here to shake you, to confront you, to remind you that the obstacles in front of you, the doubt, the failures, the voices that try to silence you, are not walls but doors. Inside these chapters, you will meet both giants of history and ordinary heroes who refuse to accept the blueprints others tried to hand them. You'll see how they turned failures into stepping stones, how they sacrificed when no one was watching, how they lived their dreams not just for themselves, but for generations yet to come. And through their stories, I want you to see your own. Because this book is not about them. It's about you, your fight, your dream, your legacy. So I'll ask you one question before you turn the page. Are you willing to break your barriers? Are you ready to build your dream? If the answer is yes, then don't just read this book. Live it. Because by the time you close the final chapter, my hope is not just that you dream bigger, but that you begin building the legacy that proves you were here. Let's begin. Chapter 1. Breaking the first wall, fear. The wall that stands at the start. Every dreamer begins with a vision. A picture in the mind of a life that could be greater, freer, more powerful. But before a single brick of that dream can be laid, there is a wall that blocks the path. A wall higher than any mountain, heavier than any burden. That wall has one name, fear. Fear is the first enemy of the dreamer. Before failure, before rejection, before exhaustion, there is fear. Fear of being judged. Fear of losing. Fear of not being enough. Fear of stepping into the unknown and realizing the world doesn't care. It's the wall that whispers, stay where you are. It's safer here. Don't risk. Don't try. Don't hope. But here's the truth. Fear isn't a sign to stop. It's a signal that you are standing at the edge of something powerful. Fear is proof that your dream is alive. Fear, the oldest barrier. Fear is not weakness. Fear is ancient. It's the reason our ancestors survived in jungles filled with predators. The heart races. The body freezes. The mind screams, run, hide, stay alive. But here's the problem. In the modern world, the predators are gone, but the fear remains. The lion has been replaced by a stage, a canvas, a business idea, a book, a dream. The brain still screams, run. Fear no longer protects us, it imprisons us. And the walls it builds aren't made of stone, but of belief. Story: the man who couldn't swim. In 1954, a young boy named Desmond grew up in a small South African village. His dream was to learn how to swim. But the river was dangerous, and his father always told him, stay away, or you'll drown. For years, he never dared to step in. The fear became so strong that he grew into a man who never touched water deeper than his knees. One day, in his 40s, he decided, enough. This fear has ruled me too long. He hired an instructor and, trembling, entered the water. His body froze. His heart raced. Every step was war. But slowly, painfully, he learned. The first time he floated, he cried. Not because he was swimming, but because he realized that for decades, he had been chained by a wall that wasn't real. That's what fear does. It builds invisible prisons that last years, sometimes lifetimes. The psychology of fear. Science calls it the fight or flight response. But for dreamers, there's a third option, freeze. Fight. You push forward, even afraid. Flight. You run, you quit, you avoid. A freeze. You do nothing. You sit with your dreams in silence, watching life pass. Most people freeze. They wait for fear to disappear before moving. But fear never disappears. It only shrinks when you act. The first step into fear. Think about the first time you spoke in front of people. Your hands shook. Your voice trembled. Your heart pounded. Fear screamed, "Stop! Sit down." But the moment you finished, the fear broke. You realized it was never as deadly as it felt. That's how every barrier works. Fear looks huge until you touch it. Then you realize it's hollow. Story: the woman who stood on stage. Oprah Winfrey's first job was on a small television program. On her very first day, she froze. The lights blinded her. The cameras felt like monsters. She thought she had failed. But instead of running, she leaned into fear. Every show, every mistake, every moment of doubt, she kept going. The wall cracked. Today, Oprah stands as one of the most powerful voices on earth. Not because she never feared, but because she learned to move through fear. Fear as a compass. Here's the paradox. The thing you fear most often points directly to the place your destiny lives. Fear of speaking? Your voice carries power. Fear of leading? You were born to guide others. Fear of failing? You were meant to attempt something great. Fear doesn't mean stop. Fear means go here. The raw battle with self-talk. Fear doesn't always roar. Sometimes it whispers. You're not smart enough. You're not worthy. What if you fail and everyone laughs? These whispers are the bricks of the wall. But here's the truth. Fear's voice is loudest just before the breakthrough. Every great achiever felt it. Mandela, Jobs, Malala, Musk, they all stood at the wall. The difference? They didn't stop. Story: the boy who painted his dreams. There was a boy named David in New York. He loved painting. But every time he held a brush, fear whispered, "No one will care. You'll never be good enough." For years, he hid his paintings under his bed. Until one day, a friend forced him to display them at a small local show. He was terrified. He imagined laughter, rejection, shame. But something different happened. People stopped. They stared. They bought. His fear broke. Today, David Garibaldi is one of the world's most famous performance painters, creating masterpieces live on stage before thousands. Fear almost buried his gift, but facing it built his dream, breaking the wall in your life. Fear will not vanish. You cannot destroy it, but you can break through it. How? 1. Name it. Fear hides in shadows. Drag it into light. Write it. Speak it. 2. Shrink it. Fear grows in silence. Share it with someone who believes in you. 3. Move anyway. Courage is not the absence of fear. It's movement in its presence. The wall cracks the moment you act. The dreamer's oath against fear. Say this to yourself. I will not let fear decide my future. I will not let it steal my voice, my vision, or my destiny. I may feel it. I may tremble, but I will move anyway. Fear will not own me. Closing fire of the chapter. The first wall every dreamer meets is fear. It stands tall, unshakable, immovable. But walls are lies. They look solid until someone dares to push. That's your call now. Push. Step. Tremble if you must, but move. Because once you break the first wall, you'll discover what millions before you have learned. Fear isn't a prison. It's a passage. And on the other side lies the beginning of your dream. Chapter 2. The Seeds of a Dream. Where every empire begins. Every skyscraper begins as an idea. Every forest begins as a seed. Every movement that shook the world started as a whisper in one human soul. But here's the secret. Seeds don't look like much at first. They're small, fragile, almost invisible. Most people step on them without ever noticing. Dreams are the same. They begin in the quiet. A thought while you're staring at the ceiling late at night. A vision that flashes when you watch someone else succeed. A question that burns inside. What if? That what if is the seed. The problem? Most people bury their seeds in fear, self-doubt, or the noise of the world. They forget that inside one small seed lies the power to grow roots, crack through concrete, and tower higher than anything around it. The dangerous lie. My dream is too small. One of the biggest killers of destiny is the lie that your dream is too small to matter. Think about it. J.K. Rowling was a single mother scribbling stories in cafes. People laughed at her idea of a boy wizard. That tiny seed turned into Harry Potter, a story that has touched hundreds of millions of lives. Colonel Sanders had nothing but a recipe for fried chicken. He was rejected over 1,000 times before someone took a chance. That small dream became KFC. Malala Yousafzai was just a schoolgirl with a desire to learn. That seed made her the youngest Nobel Peace Prize winner and a voice for millions. Never underestimate a seed. The oak tree looks nothing like the acorn, but it was always inside. Story: The girl with a box of crayons. There was once a little girl in a village who loved to draw. She had no paper, no proper pencils, only a broken box of crayons and the backs of old newspapers. Every night, she drew quietly, her family telling her, "Art will not feed you. Forget these silly dreams." But she couldn't stop. The seed was alive. Years later, she found herself in Paris, her paintings displayed in galleries, her works celebrated worldwide. That girl was Frida Kahlo, who transformed her pain, her struggles, and her colors into art that still inspires generations. Her dream didn't look like much in the beginning, just a box of crayons. But that was the seed of her legacy. The psychology of seeds. Psychologists call it the spark of intrinsic motivation, the deep, internal pull to create, explore, or achieve something, not because of money or fame, but because it matters to you. That spark is the seed. But seeds need 3 things to grow. 1. Soil, a supportive environment. If you plant your seed in toxic soil, negative people, constant criticism, zero encouragement, it suffocates. 2. Water, daily actions. A seed doesn't grow by staring at it. You must water it with small steps, consistent effort, imperfect but persistent action. 3. Sunlight, belief. If you don't believe in your seed, if you keep it in the dark, it dies before it sees the sky. Story: From bicycle shop to sky. In 1903, 2 brothers from Ohio had a dream. Not to be rich, not to be famous, but to fly. At the time, people laughed. Experts said human flight was impossible. Even scientists mocked them. But the Wright brothers had a seed, the vision of a machine that could take off from the ground. They didn't have money. They didn't have college degrees. They had a bicycle shop. But every day, they watered their seed with experiments. They failed hundreds of times. They crashed. They broke bones. They were called fools. But one cold December day at Kitty Hawk, that fragile seed lifted off the ground. Humanity touched the sky. What started as 2 dreamers in a bicycle shop became the foundation of modern aviation. The enemy of seeds: noise. Seeds are quiet. Dreams whisper. The world, on the other hand, shouts. Be realistic. Get a safe job. That's not possible. Who do you think you are? Noise drowns out seeds. That's why so many people never chase their dreams. They let the noise win. But here's the truth. The world's loudest voices are often wrong. If the Wright brothers listened, we'd still be staring at birds wishing we could fly. Story: The boy with a camera. In the 1970s, a Japanese boy named Akira saved up to buy a small, cheap camera. Everyone said, photography is a hobby, not a career. But he kept shooting. He walked streets, capturing strangers' faces, sunrises, rain on glass. His family worried. His friends laughed. But the seed grew. That boy became Akira Kurosawa, one of the most legendary filmmakers of all time, whose vision inspired generations of storytellers, even shaping directors like George Lucas and Steven Spielberg. A seed, a camera, and relentless action built a cinematic legacy. Seeds in ordinary people. Not every seed becomes global. Some seeds grow quietly, but just as powerfully. A mother who dreamed of educating her daughters, fighting village elders until schools opened. A cab driver who taught himself programming at night, building an app that transformed his life. A farmer who turned barren land into a thriving community garden that now feeds hundreds. These aren't famous names, but they are proof. Every seed matters. Nurturing your own seed. Here's how to protect and grow your dream. 1. Protect it in the beginning. Don't expose your seed to harsh criticism too soon. Not everyone deserves to see it while it's still fragile. 2. Feed it daily. Small steps. 1 page written. 1 call made. 1 sketch drawn. Growth is in consistency. 3. Surround it with light. Spend time with people who water your seed, not those who trample it. 4. Remember the oak. A seed looks like nothing, but hidden inside is a tree that can outlive you. The raw truth about dreams. Dreams don't fail because they're impossible. They fail because people stop nurturing them. It's not that the seed couldn't grow. It's that the dreamer gave up before it sprouted. Every person you admire, from artists to athletes to innovators, once stood with nothing but a tiny seed. The only difference? They didn't quit. Closing fire of the chapter. The seeds of your dreams are already inside you. They may look small, ridiculous, or impossible right now, but history is built on impossible seeds. Do not abandon them. Do not laugh at them. Do not bury them in the soil of fear and doubt. Because one seed of vision, when watered with relentless faith and action, can break barriers, build empires, and inspire generations. The oak tree doesn't apologize for starting as an acorn. Neither should you. Chapter 3. Battles with Doubt. The silent assassin of dreams. Doubt doesn't arrive like a storm. It slips in like a shadow. It whispers when no one else is listening. What if I'm not good enough? What if they laugh at me? What if I fail and everyone sees it? It doesn't shout. It doesn't strike like a hammer. It creeps into your heart, paralyzes your steps, and convinces you to quit before you even begin. Doubt is the assassin of dreams. More dreams have died in silence because of doubt than because of rejection, failure, or poverty combined. But here's the truth. Every person who's ever built anything legendary has gone to war with doubt. The question is not whether you'll face it. The question is whether you'll fight back. Story 1. The painter who almost quit. Vincent van Gogh created over 2,000 works of art in his lifetime. Today, his paintings sell for millions and hang in the world's greatest museums. But during his life, he sold only one painting. He wrote letters filled with torment. I feel I am a failure. I feel useless. His doubt nearly consumed him. The world told him he had no talent. His own mind told him he had no worth. Yet, even through the darkness, he kept painting. He battled the doubt not with confidence, but with persistence. His life was tragic, but his art lives forever. Van Gogh's story proves something powerful. Doubt can scream at you, but if you keep moving, you can outlive it. Why doubt hits the hardest? Doubt attacks at 3 critical moments in your journey. 1. At the start. When the seed of your dream feels too small, doubt tells you, why even try? 2. After the first failure. One rejection, one mistake, one stumble, and doubt says, see, I told you so. 3. When success is close. Strangely, doubt often hits hardest when you're on the edge of breaking through. It whispers, you don't deserve this. These 3 strikes are where most people fold. They stop writing the book, building the business, chasing the goal. Not because they couldn't succeed, but because doubt convinced them they couldn't. Story 2. The Kid from Brooklyn. In the 1940s, a skinny kid from Brooklyn dreamed of acting. His accent was too thick. His face was unmarketable. Producers told him he'd never make it. He doubted himself so much that he considered quitting. But something inside refused to die. He kept grinding, kept hustling, kept showing up. That kid's name? Sylvester Stallone. When Hollywood slammed doors in his face, he wrote Rocky, a script inspired by his own struggles. He was so broke he had to sell his dog to pay rent. But he refused to sell his dream. When studios wanted the script, but not him as the lead, doubt screamed, take the money. Settle. Walk away. But Stallone fought back. He refused the offers until they agreed to let him star. The result? Rocky won 3 Oscars, launched a billion-dollar franchise, and turned Stallone into a legend. Doubt was loud, but his dream was louder. The science of doubt. Psychologists call it the inner critic, the voice inside that magnifies your flaws and minimizes your strengths. It thrives on fear, comparison, and perfectionism. Here's what happens in your brain. Doubt activates your amygdala, the fear center, flooding you with danger signals. It shuts down the prefrontal cortex, the decision-making part of your brain. The result? You freeze. You procrastinate. You play small. But here's the kicker. Doubt is not truth. It's a survival mechanism gone wild. It's your brain trying to protect you from risk, even if that risk is the very thing that could change your life. Story 3. The Teacher Who Changed History. Rosa Parks was an ordinary seamstress in Montgomery, Alabama. She wasn't rich, powerful, or famous. She doubted herself often. Who was she to challenge a system built on centuries of oppression? On December 1st, 1955, when she refused to give up her seat on a segregated bus, doubt was surely there. What if they arrest me? What if no one supports me? What if this changes nothing? But she acted anyway. Her courage ignited the Montgomery bus boycott, fueling the civil rights movement. One act of defiance from a woman who battled doubt changed the course of history. Her story proves, you don't have to feel fearless to make a difference. You just have to act while doubt is screaming in your ear. The battle inside every dreamer. Doubt takes many disguises. Comparison. They're more talented than me. Perfectionism. I can't start until it's flawless. Fear of judgment. What will people think if I fail? Imposter syndrome. I don't belong here. Every great dreamer, from inventors to athletes to leaders, has faced these same doubts. The difference? They treated doubt not as a stop sign, but as a signal they were on the right path. Story 4. The Unknown Hero, the Taxi Driver Coder. In Lagos, Nigeria, a young man drove taxis to support his family. At night, exhausted, he taught himself programming on an old laptop. His friends mocked him. "You're a taxi driver, not a tech guy. Who are you kidding?" Doubt lived in his bones. But he kept coding. One day, he built an app to help local drivers find safe, efficient routes. Within months, it spread like wildfire. He went from taxi driver to tech entrepreneur, employing dozens in his community. He's not on the cover of Forbes, but he's proof that ordinary people fight extraordinary battles with doubt every single day and win. Fighting doubt in your own life. Here's how you wage war against doubt. 1. Act fast. The longer you sit in doubt, the louder it gets. Action silences doubt. 2. Build evidence. Doubt says, you can't. Build proof by doing. Every small win adds a brick to your confidence. 3. Borrow belief. Surround yourself with people who remind you of your potential when you forget. Sometimes you need someone else's vision until yours clears. 4. Name the voice. Recognize doubt as a voice, not reality. Give it a name, laugh at it, shrink its power. Story 5. The runner who refused to quit. In the 1950s, experts claimed no human could run a mile in under 4 minutes. Doctors even said it was physically impossible. Bones would shatter, hearts would fail. For years, runners tried and failed. Doubt was not just in their minds. It was proven by science. Then came Roger Bannister. He broke the barrier, running a mile in 3 minutes, 59.4 seconds. Here's the twist. Within a year, dozens of other runners also broke the record. Why? Because doubt was shattered. Once one person proved it could be done, others believed they could too. Doubt was never truth. It was just a story, until someone rewrote it. Closing fire of the chapter. Doubt will always whisper. It will always tell you that you're not enough, that your dream is too big, that your chances are too small. But doubt is a liar. And like every liar, it loses its power when you confront it with truth. Every dreamer who ever changed the world, from Rosa Parks to Van Gogh, from Stallone to the unknown taxi driver, carried doubt in their pocket. The difference? They didn't let it drive. You cannot wait for doubt to disappear before chasing your dream. You must move forward with it, proving it wrong step by step. Because in the end, battles with doubt are not about eliminating fear. They're about building the courage to act while fear is still screaming. And when you win that battle, the world doesn't just change around you. It changes because of you. Chapter 4. Voices that try to silence you. The loudest prison isn't made of bars. Not every prison has steel walls or locked gates. Some prisons are invisible, built from words, expectations, and the disapproving looks of people around you. The voices of others can chain you tighter than iron. You're not smart enough. That's impossible. People like us don't do things like that. And often, these voices don't come from enemies. They come from the people closest to you. Family, teachers, friends, bosses. Not because they're evil, but because they can't see what you see. But here's the truth. History isn't shaped by those who listened. It's shaped by those who refused to be silenced. Story 1. The teacher who laughed. When a young boy in school said he wanted to be a scientist, his teacher laughed. The boy stuttered, struggled with reading, and was often labeled slow. That boy's name? Albert Einstein. The voices around him told him he was stupid, incapable, destined to fail. But he refused to let those voices dictate his horizon. Instead, he created theories that reshaped our understanding of the universe. Einstein's story is a brutal reminder. Sometimes the people meant to guide us are the very ones who try to clip our wings. The different masks of silencing voices. Voices that try to silence your dream often wear familiar masks. 1. Family tradition. Be practical. Do what your father did. Don't risk shame. 2. Authority figures. That's not realistic. Stick to the rules. 3. Peer pressure. Don't stand out. Don't be different. You'll embarrass yourself. 4. Societal stereotypes. That's not for people like you. Too young, too old, too poor, the wrong gender, the wrong race. Each voice plants a seed of doubt, but louder than doubt itself is the pressure to conform. Story 2. The girl told to stay silent. In Pakistan, a young girl was told repeatedly, girls should stay at home. Education is not for you. She could have obeyed. She could have stayed silent. But she fought. She wrote. She spoke out. She was shot in the head for daring to raise her voice. That girl was Malala Yousafzai. The voices tried to silence her with bullets. Instead, her voice became louder, echoing across the globe. She became the youngest Nobel Peace Prize laureate and a symbol of courage against oppression. Her story proves, sometimes the louder the world tells you to shut up, the more powerful your voice can become. The psychology of silencing voices. Why do people try to silence others' dreams? 1. Fear. They fear you will succeed, because your success exposes their excuses. 2. Projection. They gave up on their own dreams, so they project their failure onto you. 3. Control. They believe they know what's best for you, and that you can't be trusted with your own vision. But here's the dark truth. Many people aren't trying to protect you. They're trying to protect their own comfort zone. Story 3. The boxer who was too ugly. When a young man from Louisville said he wanted to be the greatest boxer alive, the media mocked him. Critics called him arrogant, delusional, even too ugly to be adored by the public. But that boy was Muhammad Ali. The world told him to shut up, stay humble, keep his head down. Instead, he declared, I am the greatest. Every time the voices tried to silence him, he grew louder. Every time they tried to chain him with doubt, he shattered the chains with performance. He didn't just box, he redefined what confidence, resilience, and voice could look like. Ali's story reminds us, silence isn't always peaceful. Sometimes silence is slavery. When the silencing comes from family, perhaps the hardest voices to fight are the ones inside your home. Parents who say, we sacrificed too much for you to waste it on that silly dream. Be realistic. Get a safe job. These words aren't always spoken with cruelty. Often, they come from fear, love, or survival. But if you let those voices dictate your future, you end up living someone else's life instead of your own. Ordinary hero example, the baker's son. In a small village in Eastern Europe, a boy loved music. But his father, a baker, said, music won't feed you. Stay in the bakery. The boy kept sneaking out at night to play. His father beat him for it. The whole village mocked him. That boy grew into Franz Schubert, one of the greatest composers in history. Imagine the symphonies we would have lost if he listened to the voices that tried to silence him. The cost of obedience. Let's be clear, not every voice that silences you sounds cruel. Sometimes they sound wise, logical, even loving. But the cost of obedience is this. You live their life, not yours. You follow their dream, not yours. You become their definition of successful. And one day, you wake up realizing your life was hijacked by other people's fears. Story 4. The woman who refused the cage. In the 1960s, society told women, stay at home. Don't run marathons. That's for men. But Catherine Switzer refused. She became the first woman to officially run the Boston Marathon in 1967. During the race, an official tried to physically rip off her number, shouting, get the hell out of my race. But she kept running. She finished. And her act opened the doors for women athletes everywhere. The voices tried to silence her, literally tackling her on the road. Instead, she became a symbol of resilience. Strategies to break free from silencing voices. 1. Filter the source. Ask, has this person ever chased a dream themselves? If not, their words don't define you. 2. Build a counterchoir. Surround yourself with voices that encourage, uplift, and fuel your fire. 3. Prove them wrong in silence. Sometimes the best response isn't an argument, it's action. 4. Hold on to the vision. Remember, the world cannot see your dream because it was planted in you, not them. Story 5. The boy from Compton. In Compton, California, a young boy grew up surrounded by violence, poverty, and constant voices telling him, you'll never make it out. He picked up a notebook and started writing poetry. His teachers dismissed it. His peers laughed at him, but he kept writing. That boy became Kendrick Lamar, one of the most influential artists of his generation. His words now echo in stadiums and classrooms. far louder than the voices that once tried to shut him down. The raw truth. The world will try to silence you. Not because you're weak, but because your voice threatens the comfortable lies others live by. Every innovator, every artist, every leader you admire has been told at some point, shut up, sit down, stay small. But they didn't. And that's why you know their names. Closing fire of the chapter. The question is not whether voices will try to silence you. They will. The question is whether you will let them. The truth is simple. If Malala had stayed silent, millions of girls would still be voiceless. If Ali had kept quiet, boxing would never have had its greatest champion. If Catherine Switzer had stepped off that marathon course, women's sports might still be shackled. The voices that try to silence you are not your destiny. They are your test. And when you refuse to bow, when you rise louder, stronger, unbreakable, your dream doesn't just survive. It roars. Because no matter how many voices scream, stay quiet. The only voice that decides your future is the one that refuses to be silenced. Chapter 5. The Bridge Between Struggle and Hope. The Valley Before the Bridge. Every dreamer knows the valley. It's that dark, hollow place where everything feels lost, where failure seems permanent, where the voices of doubt echo louder than faith, where you start to believe maybe the world was right when it told you to quit. It's the season where bills stack up, opportunities dry out, your own body betrays you, and you feel abandoned by the very people you thought would stand beside you. This is the valley. And in the valley, hope feels like a luxury you can't afford. But hidden inside that valley is the seed of transformation. Because hope isn't found when life is easy. Hope is forged in the fire of struggle. And the bridge between the two is not built by chance. It's built by choice. Story 1. Nelson Mandela's Long Walk. Few people walked the valley as long as Nelson Mandela. For 27 years, he sat in prison, isolated, beaten, silenced. The world wrote him off. The South African government labeled him a terrorist. Many of his own people feared the dream of freedom would die with him behind bars. But Mandela never let the valley drown him. Instead, he built a bridge of hope brick by brick. He read, he wrote, he taught. He kept the dream alive in the darkest cells of Robben Island. And when he finally walked free, he didn't just walk out a man, he walked out a bridge. A bridge between centuries of oppression and the dawn of freedom. A bridge between hatred and reconciliation. Mandela's story is proof. The deeper the valley, the stronger the bridge you can build. The anatomy of the bridge. The bridge between struggle and hope isn't made of steel or stone. It's made of 3 elements. 1. Resilience. The ability to keep moving when every muscle screams to stop. 2. Vision. The ability to see beyond the darkness into what could be. 3. Faith. The refusal to believe that the valley is the end of your story. Without these, the valley swallows you. With them, the valley becomes the very ground on which you build your bridge. Story 2. The Orphan Who Wouldn't Quit. In a small village in Africa, a boy lost his parents to disease. By age 10, he was raising his younger siblings. The world told him, you'll never make it out. Poverty is your fate. But he refused to stay in the valley. He studied by candlelight. He worked odd jobs. He walked miles to school. Years later, that boy became a doctor. Not only did he lift his family out of poverty, but he returned to the same village to open a clinic, ensuring other children wouldn't face the same fate. This boy's name may never be known outside his village. But to his people, he became the living bridge between struggle and hope. Why struggle feels endless? Let's be honest. When you're in the valley, it doesn't feel temporary. It feels permanent. Every failed exam, every rejection letter, every heartbreak, every betrayal feels like a brick wall. But here's the raw truth. The wall you think you're hitting is often the first piece of your bridge. The failures aren't the end. They're the material you use to cross into something greater. Story 3. Oprah's Fire. Before she became the most influential talk show host in the world, Oprah Winfrey lived in poverty. She endured abuse, ridicule, and rejection. When she landed her first TV job, she was told she wasn't fit for television. She could have believed them. She could have stayed in the valley. Instead, she built her bridge. Every rejection became fuel. Every insult became fire. And step by step, she turned her pain into a platform. Today, Oprah isn't just successful. She is the very embodiment of hope for millions. Her bridge carries generations of women, minorities, and dreamers across valleys of their own. The hidden power of ordinary bridges. Not every bridge is global. Some bridges are quiet, invisible, built in the shadows. The mother who works 3 jobs so her children can have a better future. The refugee who rebuilds life in a new land, carrying scars no one sees. The addict who finally chooses sobriety, building a bridge not just for themselves, but for everyone who loves them. These bridges may never make headlines, but they matter. They matter because they remind us that every act of resilience, no matter how small, can turn despair into destiny. Story 4. J.K. Rowling's Last Chance. Before Harry Potter became a global phenomenon, J.K. Rowling was a single mother, living on welfare, writing in cafes with a baby stroller beside her. She was rejected by publisher after publisher. 12 times her manuscript was turned down, but she refused to surrender to the valley. She refused to let the rejection letters define her. Instead, she built her bridge 1 page at a time. And when the world finally read Harry Potter, it wasn't just a story about wizards. It was a story about hope, the very hope Rowling clung to when no one else believed in her. Building your own bridge. So how do you build the bridge between struggle and hope? 1. Name your valley. Be honest about where you are. You can't cross what you refuse to face. 2. Anchor your vision. Write down the dream that's bigger than your struggle. 3. Take daily steps. Bridges aren't built in a day. Every small step forward is another plank laid. 4. Refuse the voices. The world will say you'll never make it. Prove them wrong with persistence, not arguments. 5. Look back to look forward. Remember how far you've already come. If you survived yesterday's valley, you can survive today's. Story 5. The athlete who refused defeat. Bethany Hamilton, a teenage surfer, lost her arm in a shark attack. Her career should have been over. The voices said, "It's impossible. You'll never compete again." But she didn't let the valley define her. Within a year, she was back in the ocean, surfing professionally with one arm. Her story became a bridge not just for athletes, but for anyone who thought their dreams were over after tragedy. The hard truth. Not every bridge is glamorous. Sometimes it's made of sweat, tears, sleepless nights, and countless failures. But if you keep walking, if you keep building, if you refuse to camp forever in the valley, eventually, the bridge will carry you forward. And when you reach the other side, something miraculous happens. The very valley that once tried to break you becomes the foundation of your hope. Closing fire of the chapter. Struggle and hope are not enemies. They are partners. Struggle tests you. Hope sustains you. And the bridge between them is built by your own hands, with your own scars. Mandela, Oprah, Rowling, Hamilton, their bridges inspire us because they prove what's possible. But so do the bridges of unnamed mothers, fathers, children, and neighbors who quietly choose resilience every day. So the next time you find yourself in the valley, remember, you are not trapped. You are building. Every setback is a stone. Every heartbreak is a beam. Every rejection is a nail. And when the bridge finally stands, you will look back and realize the valley wasn't your grave. It was your construction site. Because the bridge between struggle and hope is built not by those who quit, but by those who dare to keep walking. Chapter 6. The Power of Small Wins. Why small wins matter. Dreams collapse not because people lack talent, but because they lack stamina. When the mountain feels endless, when the finish line is miles away, most give up. Not because they can't do it, but because they don't feel progress. That's where small wins come in. Small wins are the quiet victories that whisper, "Keep going. You're moving forward." They are the habits formed, the pounds lost, the words written, the hours studied. Small wins look insignificant in the moment, but they are the building blocks of greatness. Story 1. Thomas Edison's 1,000 failures. When Thomas Edison was asked how it felt to fail 1,000 times before inventing the light bulb, he famously replied, "I didn't fail 1,000 times. The light bulb was an invention with 1,000 steps." Edison didn't chase one massive win. He embraced small experiments, small tweaks, small improvements. Each one built momentum. And in the end, the small wins stacked up to illuminate the world. Story 2. Serena Williams' practice court victories. Before Serena Williams became one of the greatest tennis players in history, her father had her and Venus train on broken-down courts in Compton. Day after day, Serena wasn't winning trophies. She was winning practice points. Every serve mastered, every shot sharpened, every tiny adjustment built her into a powerhouse. Her dominance wasn't born on championship stages. It was born in the daily grind of small wins. The psychology of progress. Psychologists call this the progress principle. Studies show that people feel most motivated not when they achieve huge milestones, but when they experience small, daily progress. Why? Because the brain rewards small wins with dopamine, the chemical of motivation. Each little victory becomes fuel for the next one. That's why crossing a task off your list feels so good. It tricks your brain into saying, "Yes, I can do this." Momentum is addictive. Story 3. The student who refused to quit. In Pakistan, a boy named Hamza failed his math exam 3 years in a row. Everyone told him to give up, to switch subjects. But instead, he broke the mountain into stones. Every day, he solved 5 problems. Not 50, just 5. Within a year, he passed. 2 years later, he topped his class. Hamza didn't conquer math overnight. He conquered it through tiny wins, each one stacking until his failure became strength. Why we underestimate small wins. We live in a world obsessed with overnight success. Viral videos, million-dollar startups, instant fame. But behind every overnight success is 1,000 nights of small, unseen wins. The world only claps when the stadium is full, but the true victory was won long before the lights came on. Story 4. J.K. Rowling's 1 hour. Before Harry Potter made her famous, J.K. Rowling was a single mom, broke and depressed. She couldn't afford hours of writing, but she carved out 1 hour a day while her daughter napped. 1 hour. One small win. Page by page, chapter by chapter, she built a world that would captivate millions. The overnight phenomenon was built on a foundation of ordinary, quiet wins. The compound effect of wins. One push-up doesn't change your body. One page doesn't write a book. One kind word doesn't transform a relationship. But one win becomes 2. 2 become 5. 5 become 50. That's the compound effect. Small wins multiply into unstoppable transformation. Like drops of water wearing down a stone, small wins shape destinies. Story 5. The unknown entrepreneur. In India, a young woman named Priya started a small tailoring shop with a single sewing machine. Her first big win wasn't a contract with a fashion house. It was stitching one dress perfectly for her neighbor. That neighbor told 2 friends. They told 5 more. Soon, Priya wasn't just sewing dresses, she was running a thriving business. Her empire didn't begin with a bold leap. It began with one tiny win, doing her first job well. Small wins in crisis. Sometimes small wins are all you have. The cancer patient who celebrates 1 day of less pain. The addict who makes it 1 day sober. The job seeker who applies for 1 more role after dozens of rejections. These small wins may look invisible to the outside world, but inside, they are the fire that keeps hope alive. Story 6. Malala's daily courage. When the Taliban tried to silence Malala Yousafzai for demanding education, they didn't fear one big act. They feared the accumulation of small wins. 1 girl showing up to class, 1 essay written, 1 voice raised. Her survival and continued advocacy became the ultimate small win turned global movement. Each act, each speech, each stand became a plank on the bridge to education for millions. Why people quit before the breakthrough. Here's the tragedy. Most people give up not because the dream is impossible, but because they underestimate the power of small wins. They look at the mountain and think, too big. But if you climb 1 step a day, eventually you stand at the peak. The enemy of greatness isn't failure, it's impatience. Story 7. The marathon runner who started with 1 block. A man named Luis was overweight, depressed, and smoking 2 packs a day. He dreamed of running a marathon, but the idea was absurd. So he started small. 1 block. He jogged, collapsed, and gasped for air. But the next day, he jogged 2 blocks. Then 3. Years later, Luis crossed the finish line of his first marathon. He didn't win the race, but he won his life back. His victory was proof. Every marathon starts with 1 small step. How to stack small wins in your life. 1. Break the mountain. Divide the big goal into the smallest possible steps. 2. Celebrate tiny victories. Every checkmark matters. 3. Create visible progress. Track your wins to remind yourself you're moving forward. 4. Don't despise small beginnings. Today's tiny step is tomorrow's giant leap. 5. Make it daily. Small wins lose power if they aren't consistent. The bridge between wins and dreams. Small wins are the bridge between struggle and hope we talked about in the last chapter. They transform despair into momentum. You don't leap from poverty to wealth, failure to success, sickness to health. You walk there, one small win at a time. Story 8. The teacher's one student. A teacher in Brazil once told me her story. She had a class of 40 students, most from broken homes. She was overwhelmed and ready to quit. Then she decided to focus on just one small win, helping one student pass. That student passed. Then another. Then another. By the end of the year, her entire class had improved. The victory began not with 40 students, but with one. Closing fire of the chapter. Small wins may not make headlines. They don't go viral. They aren't glamorous. But they are the seeds of every great story. Mandela didn't free a nation in one speech. He built hope daily in prison. Serena didn't win Grand Slams on day one. She won practice points in the dark. Oprah didn't transform lives overnight. She built her platform conversation by conversation. The truth is simple. Big dreams are nothing more than small wins stacked over time. So if you feel overwhelmed by the mountain ahead, stop staring at the peak. Look at the step in front of you. Take it. Then take the next. And one day, without even realizing it, you'll look back and see that the small wins carried you all the way to greatness. Chapter 7. Dreams in the Face of Failure. The dream killer called failure. Failure. Even the word makes stomachs tighten. It feels like a verdict, a judgment, a scarlet stamp saying, "You're not enough." Failure makes dreamers quit. It convinces us the critics were right. It whispers that our hopes were foolish to begin with. But here's the truth. Failure isn't the end of the dream. It's part of the dream. Every dream worth chasing will collide with failure. Every visionary will stumble. Every fighter will fall. The difference between those who stay in the ashes and those who rise to glory isn't talent, it's resilience. Failure is the furnace where greatness is forged. Story 1. Michael Jordan's cuts. Before becoming his airness, Michael Jordan was cut from his high school basketball team. He went home, locked himself in his room, and cried. That moment could have ended his dream. But instead, he turned failure into fire. He trained harder, stayed longer on the court, pushed himself beyond exhaustion. Years later, when asked about success, he said, "I've missed more than 9,000 shots in my career. I've lost almost 300 games. I've failed over and over and over again in my life. And that is why I succeed." Jordan's legacy isn't built on avoiding failure. It's built on embracing it as fuel. Why failure hurts so deeply. Failure hurts because we tie it to identity. If the project fails, we think I am a failure. If the relationship ends, I am unlovable. But failure is never identity. Failure is feedback. It tells you what didn't work, not who you are. The greatest shift you can make is to separate the dreamer from the failure. The dreamer can grow. The failure is just a chapter, not the whole story. Story 2. Steve Jobs, fired from his own company. In 1985, Steve Jobs, the co-founder of Apple, was forced out of his own company. Imagine it. Your dream, your creation, the company you built from a garage, ripped from your hands. Jobs was humiliated, broken. For a while, he disappeared into the background. Many thought his career was finished. But failure became his teacher. He started new ventures, learned humility, sharpened his vision. A decade later, Apple, struggling without him, brought him back. The comeback? He led the creation of the iMac, iPod, iPhone, and iPad, devices that transformed the world. Jobs said, "Getting fired from Apple was the best thing that could have ever happened to me." Failure pushed him into the greatest chapter of his dream. The anatomy of failure. Every dreamer faces 3 stages of failure. 1. Shock. The disbelief that your plan collapsed. 2. Shame. The feeling that you're worthless because of it. 3. Shift. The moment you decide whether to stay broken or rebuild. Most people never reach the 3rd stage. They get stuck in shame and quit. But those who shift, the ones who decide to learn and rise, become unstoppable. Story 3. Abraham Lincoln's long defeat. Before becoming the U.S. president who ended slavery, Abraham Lincoln was a walking failure. He lost his job, failed in business, suffered a nervous breakdown, lost multiple elections. By ordinary standards, he was a man doomed to obscurity. But Lincoln refused to let failure bury his dream of leadership. Each loss toughened him. Each rejection sharpened him. When he finally won the presidency, he carried the scars of failure as armor. And it was that armor that gave him the strength to lead a divided nation through its darkest hour. Failure didn't stop him. It prepared him. Story 4. The singer told, "You can't sing." When Elvis Presley was starting out, he auditioned for a local band. The manager told him, "You're better off driving trucks, because you'll never make it as a singer." He could have quit right there. But Elvis kept singing. His style, his energy, his voice, once rejected, would later ignite a cultural revolution. Every no he faced was fuel for the dream. The ordinary heroes of failure. Not all failures make headlines. Some are lived in silence, in everyday battles. The single mother who loses job after job, but keeps hustling until she builds her own business. The student who fails exams, rewrites them, and finally earns the degree no one thought possible. The shopkeeper who goes bankrupt, rebuilds, and rises stronger. Their stories may not fill history books, but they fill the world with proof. Failure is survivable. Why failure creates fear. Failure's power lies in fear. Fear of ridicule. Fear of wasting time. Fear of never being enough. But here's the paradox. The people we admire most, athletes, leaders, artists, are the ones who failed the most. Their courage didn't come from never falling. It came from refusing to stay down. Story 5. Colonel Sanders at 65. At 65, broke and rejected, Colonel Harlan Sanders carried a chicken recipe he believed in. He pitched it to restaurants across America. He was rejected over 1,000 times. Most people would have quit. Sanders didn't. His persistence turned Kentucky Fried Chicken into a global empire. His story screams, it's never too late, and no failure is final unless you decide it is. The gift hidden in failure. Failure strips away illusions. It shows you who your true supporters are. It teaches you resilience, humility, and creativity. Failure is a mirror. Sometimes it reveals weaknesses you must strengthen. Sometimes it redirects you toward a better path. It hurts, but it heals. Story 6. The author who burned her work. The famous author Sylvia Plath once burned an entire manuscript she hated. She could have quit writing altogether. Instead, she wrote again and again. Eventually, her work would define a generation of poets. Even when she despised her own words, she didn't let failure silence her pen. Failure as training ground. Think of failure as weights in the gym. Each rep feels heavy. Each rep burns. But each rep makes you stronger. The dream is the muscle. Failure is the weight. Without the weight, the dream never grows. Story 7. The tech genius who failed first. Before Jack Ma founded Alibaba, he failed his university entrance exams twice. He was rejected from dozens of jobs, including KFC. Failure could have buried him. Instead, he used it as training. Years later, Alibaba became one of the world's largest companies, and Jack Ma became one of the richest men alive. He said, "If you don't give up, you still have a chance." Giving up is the greatest failure. How to dream in the face of failure. 1. Redefine failure. It's not the end, it's information. 2. Embrace the lesson. Ask, what is this teaching me? 3. Keep moving. Stagnation kills more dreams than failure ever will. 4. Use pain as fuel. Let the sting push you forward. 5. Tell yourself the truth. Failure hurt, but it didn't destroy you. Story 8. The teacher who failed the exam. A young woman in Nigeria failed her teacher certification exam 3 times. Her family begged her to give up. Instead, she studied harder. On the 4th attempt, she passed. Today, she runs a school for children in her community, giving kids the chance she almost lost. Her failure became the fire that turned her into a lifeline for others. Closing fire of the chapter. Dreams don't die in failure. They die in surrender. Jordan missed thousands of shots. Lincoln lost countless elections. Oprah was told she didn't belong. Jobs was fired. Rowling was rejected. Sanders was laughed at. But they didn't stop. They dreamed in the face of failure. They understood the truth. Failure isn't your enemy. Quitting is. So when your dream collides with failure, and it will, don't see it as the end. See it as the forge. Let it refine you. Let it strengthen you. Let it prepare you. Because the dreamer who refuses to bow to failure cannot be stopped. And one day, the world won't remember the failures that tried to bury you. They'll remember the dream you built in spite of them. Chapter 8. Building when nothing exists. The empty ground of dreams. There is a special kind of dreamer. Not the ones who inherit empires. Not the ones who step into well-paved paths. But the ones who look around, see nothing, no tools, no resources, no permission, and still say, I will build. This is the rawest form of creation. It's the hardest. And it's the most powerful. Because when you start with nothing, every step forward is proof of courage. Story 1. Oprah Winfrey. From dirt floors to global icon. Oprah was born into poverty in rural Mississippi. Her early home had no running water, no electricity. She wore potato sacks as dresses. By every measure, she had nothing. But she had words. She had a voice. She had a spark. She started reading aloud in church, speaking with a fire that people couldn't ignore. From there, she pushed her way into radio, then TV. She was told she was unfit for television, yet she kept showing up. From dirt floors, she built an empire. From nothing, she built everything. The pain of the blank page. Building when nothing exists feels like staring at a blank page. There's no map, no footsteps to follow. Doubt screams louder than belief. But here's the secret. Every dream begins as nothing. Every skyscraper was once an empty lot. Every symphony was once silence. Every movement was once one voice. The question isn't whether you have something to start with. The question is whether you'll dare to start when there is nothing. Story 2. J.K. Rowling. Writing in cafes with pennies. Before Harry Potter became a billion-dollar world, J.K. Rowling was a single mother, broke, writing in cafes because she couldn't afford to heat her flat. Publishers rejected her over and over. She had nothing, except the story burning in her mind. She kept writing. She kept showing up to the blank page. That nothing turned into a book. That book became a series. That series became a cultural phenomenon. Her empire began with nothing more than ink on paper. Story 3. The Kenyan boy who built a windmill. In rural Malawi, a boy named William Kamkwamba dropped out of school because his family couldn't afford the fees. He was poor, uneducated, with no access to resources. But he was curious. He scavenged junkyards, found scraps of metal and bicycle parts, and built a windmill by hand. That windmill generated electricity and pumped water, saving his village from famine. From nothing but trash, he built power. Literally. His story became a global inspiration. Why nothing is the purest soil. When you have nothing, you have two choices: surrender to it, or create from it. Nothing is terrifying, but it's also fertile ground. Because nothing forces you to use imagination. Nothing forces you to be resourceful. Nothing forces you to fight. And when you build from nothing, no one can say it was handed to you. The dream becomes undeniable proof of your grit. Story 4. Howard Schultz. Coffee from the streets. Before Starbucks became a global giant, Howard Schultz grew up poor in Brooklyn housing projects. His family lived in government-subsidized housing. He had no connections, no wealth, no prestige. But he had a dream of creating coffee houses that felt like community spaces. People laughed. Who would pay for expensive coffee when you could make it at home? Schultz built anyway. One store, then another. He pushed, scraped, borrowed, fought through endless rejections. Today, Starbucks is a household name. It started with nothing but a dream in a housing project kid's heart. The loneliness of the builder. Let's be honest. Building when nothing exists is lonely. People won't understand. They'll mock you. They'll say, if it were possible, someone else would have done it already. But the loneliness is proof you're walking uncharted ground. Builders don't wait for permission. Builders don't wait for a crowd. Builders go first. Story 5. Elon Musk, sleeping on a couch, coding at night. Before Tesla, before SpaceX, before billions, Elon Musk was broke in California. He slept in his office, showered at a YMCA, and coded late into the night with his brother to keep their startup alive. No investors. No safety net. No blueprint for changing industries. But he built anyway. First Zip2, then PayPal. Those nothing ventures became the launchpad for revolutions in cars, rockets, and energy. Musk shows the raw truth. Revolutionary dreams often begin on the floor, not in the boardroom. The ordinary builders. Not all stories make headlines. but they are no less heroic. The refugee who arrives in a new country with no money, no language, no home, yet starts a business from scratch. The teenager who takes scraps of wood and builds a bike to get to school. The artist who paints on cardboard because she can't afford canvas until her work is discovered. They all prove the same thing. You don't need everything to start. You just need something inside you that refuses to quit. Story 6. Soichiro Honda, Rejected Engineer. Soichiro Honda, the founder of Honda Motor Company, applied for an engineering job at Toyota after World War II. He was rejected. Broke and unemployed, he started making motorized bicycles from scrap engines in his shed. Those scraps became the foundation of Honda. Today, his company is one of the largest automobile manufacturers in the world. What others called junk, he called a beginning. The pattern of builders. When we strip away the details, every builder from nothing shares the same traits. 1. Imagination. They saw what didn't exist yet. 2. Resourcefulness. They used scraps, pennies, scraps of time. 3. Defiance. They refused to listen when the world said impossible. 4. Persistence. They kept hammering away, brick by brick, day by day. This is the blueprint of every empire that rose from ashes. Story 7. Sarah Blakely, From Fax Machines to Billionaire. Sarah Blakely sold fax machines door to door. She had no background in fashion, no investors, just an idea, better undergarments for women. She cut the feet off her pantyhose to make a prototype. From that tiny beginning, she built Spanx, turning it into a billion-dollar brand. She started with nothing, but her imagination made the nothing into everything. The fire in the builder's heart. Building when nothing exists is more than strategy, it's fire. A stubborn, relentless refusal to die in obscurity. A wild belief that something can exist where nothing stands. This fire doesn't come from money or privilege. It comes from hunger, from pain, from desires so fierce it won't let you sleep. Story 8. The street musician who built a movement. In Brazil, a boy named Anderson Sá grew up in poverty and crime. He had nothing, not even safety. He turned to music, creating lyrics about the struggles of his community. With nothing but borrowed instruments and his voice, he built a hip-hop group that became a movement for peace in the favelas. He didn't build an empire of money, but an empire of hope. And sometimes, that's even greater. Lessons from nothing. Start small. The first brick matters more than the 100th. Use what's in your hands. Junk, scraps, borrowed time. It's enough. Don't wait for resources. Create the resources. Don't wait for belief. Build until the world has no choice but to believe. Closing fire of the chapter. Building when nothing exists is terrifying. It feels impossible. But the stories of Oprah, Rowling, Kamkwamba, Schultz, Musk, Blakely, Honda, and millions of nameless dreamers scream the truth. You don't need everything to start. You just need the courage to start with nothing. Every empire was once an empty lot. Every invention was once an idea no one believed in. Every dreamer who ever changed the world once stood on the same ground you're standing on now, the ground of nothing. So don't wait. Don't beg for permission. Don't let nothing paralyze you. Take the scrap, the idea, the spark, and build. Because when you build where nothing exists, you don't just create something. You create proof that anything is possible. Chapter 9. Unseen Sacrifices Behind Every Dream. Success is a highlight reel. It's the glossy book cover, the sparkling stage lights, the trophies, the applause. That's what the world sees. But beneath every shining moment are years of scars the world never talks about. The long nights no one clapped for. The heartbreaks no one posted. The sacrifices made in silence, swallowed alone. Every dream looks glamorous when it is achieved. But every dreamer knows the truth. The journey to building a dream comes with a bill. And that bill is paid in sacrifices. People admire the victory, but rarely ask about the cost. This chapter is about that cost, the unseen sacrifices behind every dream. Because without paying it, no dream becomes reality. The illusion of effortless success. We live in a world addicted to shortcuts. Everyone wants this secret hack to wealth, fitness, or success. But here's the truth. There are no hacks big enough to replace sacrifice. You see the business owner smiling in their new car. You don't see the months they couldn't afford rent. You hear the singer's voice filling arenas. You don't see the thousands of rejections before anyone listened. You watch the athlete holding the medal. You don't see the blood, sweat, and injuries hidden behind the celebration. The world celebrates the what, but ignores the how. And the how is sacrifice. Michael Jordan, the price of obsession. Michael Jordan is remembered as the greatest basketball player in history. But people forget that he was once cut from his high school team. Imagine the humiliation, the laughter, the whispers. He's not good enough. Jordan could have quit right there. Instead, he made a sacrifice most aren't willing to. He gave up comfort. He gave up being normal. He turned rejection into obsession. While others partied, he practiced. While others slept, he ran drills. He once said, "I've missed more than 9,000 shots in my career. I've lost almost 300 games. 26 times I've been trusted to take the game-winning shot and missed. I've failed over and over and over again. And that is why I succeed." The unseen sacrifice. Loneliness. Pain. Relentless obsession. He sacrificed ease for greatness. Oprah Winfrey. Pain to purpose. Oprah didn't start as the media giant we know today. She was born into poverty, faced abuse, rejection, and a society stacked against her. At age 23, she was fired from her job as a news anchor because she was deemed unfit for television. That could have been the end. But Oprah sacrificed security to chase something greater. She walked away from safe roles and faced criticism at every turn. She sacrificed relationships, sleep, and the illusion of fitting in. Today, she is one of the most influential women in history. But behind the empire lies a lifetime of sacrifice, pain transformed into purpose. The entrepreneur who slept on the floor. When Elon Musk poured everything into Tesla and SpaceX, he wasn't the billionaire we see now. He sold his own possessions, borrowed money for rent, and sometimes slept on the office floor. Imagine risking everything you own for a vision the world laughs at. People called him crazy. Investors pulled out. Friends doubted him. He sacrificed comfort, reputation, and security. And yet, he held on. That sacrifice became rockets breaking the sky. The ordinary heroes. Dreams aren't just about famous names. Some of the greatest sacrifices are made by everyday heroes whose names never reach history books. The immigrant parent. Picture a father who leaves his family behind, working 16-hour shifts in a factory to send money home so his kids can study. He sacrifices time with his children, time he'll never get back, so they can build lives bigger than his own. The single mother. She skips meals so her child doesn't go hungry. She works 2 jobs, sacrificing her health and her dreams, to make sure her child has a chance to chase theirs. No magazine cover will ever feature her, but her sacrifice is the foundation of her child's future. The student with a dream. He studies by candlelight because the electricity bill wasn't paid. He works night shifts at a gas station to cover tuition, sacrificing sleep for years. While his friends party, he quietly builds his future. These are the unseen sacrifices behind dreams that may never make headlines, but matter more than gold medals or billion-dollar companies. The loneliness nobody talks about. Chasing a dream is often lonely. Friends don't always understand why you can't hang out. Family may discourage you. Why don't you just get a safe job? Society labels you unrealistic, arrogant, or foolish. This loneliness is the tax of ambition. It breaks some. But for others, it becomes the crucible where resilience is forged. Every late night in silence, every rejection, every empty room you keep working in. Those are the sacrifices that mold greatness. The psychology of sacrifice. Our brains are wired to avoid pain. Comfort feels safe. Sacrifice feels threatening. That's why most people stop at the first taste of discomfort. But here's the paradox. The very thing we fear, sacrifice, is what creates the strength to carry dreams. Every missed party builds discipline. Every failure builds resilience. Every sacrifice becomes a deposit in the bank of destiny. Frida Kahlo, creating through pain. Frida Kahlo lived much of her life in agony after a terrible bus accident left her in constant pain. Yet she sacrificed comfort every day to pour herself into art. She painted from her hospital bed, even in full-body casts. Her sacrifice was physical suffering turned into timeless beauty. Without it, the world would never know the courage behind her colors. The turning point of sacrifice. Sacrifice feels like loss in the moment. But it is not loss, it is investment. Every hour of practice nobody sees. Every tear cried in private. Every no, You endure without giving up. Those are the bricks dreams are built on. People admire the building, but never ask who carried the bricks. The truth is, if you want to build your dream, you will carry heavy loads that nobody thanks you for. But one day, those very loads become the foundation of something unshakable. Explosive closing fire. Behind every dream realized are sacrifices unseen. Behind every applause are silences endured. Behind every victory are losses swallowed in private. The world will see your dream when it's built, but only you will know the nights it cost you, the relationships strained, the failures hidden, the tears shed. And that's what makes the dream priceless. Because anyone can want a dream, but only those willing to bleed for it, sacrifice for it, and walk alone for it, ever hold it in their hands. So ask yourself, are you willing to pay the price the world doesn't see? Chapter 10. Dreamers who changed the world. Every breakthrough, every revolution, every piece of progress the world enjoys today began in the mind of a dreamer. But these dreamers weren't gods. They weren't born with superpowers. They were ordinary men and women who dared to see beyond their present, who endured ridicule, rejection, and sacrifice, and who fought for visions bigger than themselves. This chapter is about them, the dreamers who changed the world. The ones who remind us that dreams aren't just personal escapes. They're forces of transformation. They prove that the fire inside one person can ignite millions. The world laughs before it applauds. Every great dreamer has one thing in common. Before the applause, they faced the laughter. Before the statues and honors, they stood alone, ridiculed. Galileo was mocked by the church for saying the earth wasn't the center of the universe. The Wright brothers were laughed at for thinking humans could fly. Rosa Parks was threatened for daring to stay in her seat. The world resists dreamers until their dreams become reality. Then suddenly, everyone claims they believed all along. Martin Luther King Jr., a dream that changed nations. Few speeches in history are as famous as Martin Luther King Jr.'s "I have a dream." But King's dream wasn't just words, it was fire. It was courage to stand against an entrenched system of racism and injustice, knowing it could cost him his life. He dreamed of children of all races walking hand in hand. He dreamed of a world where justice rolled like water. His dream came with threats, prison, and ultimately death. Yet even in sacrifice, the dream lived on, fueling civil rights movements around the globe. King proved that one person's dream, spoken with conviction, can move mountains of hate. Malala Yousafzai, a dream in the face of death. In a small village in Pakistan, a young girl dared to dream of something simple yet radical, the right for girls to go to school. Malala Yousafzai's dream was met with bullets. She was shot in the head by extremists who wanted her silenced forever. But instead of silence, her voice grew louder. Malala survived, continued her fight, and became the youngest Nobel Peace Prize winner. Her story reminds us that dreams don't belong to the privileged, they belong to the brave. And sometimes, the most powerful dreams come from the smallest voices. The Wright brothers, building wings out of doubt. At the turn of the 20th century, the idea of human flight seemed insane. Newspapers mocked it. Scientists dismissed it. But two bicycle makers from Ohio, Wilbur and Orville Wright, dreamed differently. They studied birds, tested designs, and crashed more times than they could count. They sacrificed money, reputation, and years of failure. On December 17, 1903, they finally flew. The world that once laughed stood in awe. Their dream changed travel, war, business, and connection forever. They proved that dreamers don't need titles or wealth. They need vision and the will to sacrifice for it. An unsung dreamer, the teacher who believed. Not all dreamers change the entire world. Some change just one life, and that life changes the world. Picture a small-town teacher who sees potential in a struggling student. While others mock the child, the teacher stays after class, explains lessons again, and whispers words of encouragement. That student grows up to become a doctor, saving thousands of lives. The world never knows the teacher's name. But the dreamer behind the scenes, the one who believed when no one else did, made all the difference. Dreamers aren't always in the spotlight. Sometimes they are in classrooms, kitchens, or quiet corners, shaping futures unseen. Nelson Mandela, a dream stronger than prison. Nelson Mandela spent 27 years in prison for daring to dream of an equal South Africa. 27 years, almost 3 decades of sacrifice, isolation, and missed time with family. Most would have broken. But Mandela held on to his dream, feeding it daily, even in a cell. When he finally walked free, he did not choose revenge. He chose reconciliation. His dream wasn't just freedom for himself, but unity for an entire nation. Mandela's story shows us that even prison walls can't contain a dream. The silent dreamer, the farmer who fed millions. Norman Borlaug isn't a household name, but this agricultural scientist dreamed of ending hunger. Through years of research, sacrifice, and trial, he developed high-yield crops that transformed food production. Experts estimate his work saved over 1 billion people from starvation. No parades, no global fame, but his dream quite literally saved lives on a scale few can imagine. He is proof that not all dreamers are in the spotlight. Some quietly, humbly, change the course of humanity. Dreams that outlive the dreamer. What's powerful about dreamers is that their visions often outlive them. Steve Jobs dreamed of putting a computer in your pocket. Today, billions hold iPhones. Mother Teresa dreamed of serving the poorest of the poor. Decades after her death, her mission continues worldwide. And Frank dreamed of a world without hate, and her diary, written in hiding, continues to inspire millions long after her short life ended. Dreamers may die, but their dreams echo through generations. The pattern of every dreamer. Look closely at all these stories. You'll see the same rhythm. 1. A dream begins as a whisper, often dismissed as foolish. 2. The world laughs, criticizes, or resists. 3. The dreamer sacrifices comfort, reputation, even safety. 4. The dreamer perseveres. 5. The world changes. Every dreamer who changed the world followed this path. And so will you, if you dare. Explosive closing fire. The truth is, dreamers don't just change their own lives. They tilt the entire axis of history. Every comfort you enjoy today, the plane you fly on, the school you attended, the rights you hold, the technology in your hand, exists because someone, somewhere, was laughed at for dreaming it. And here's the final truth. The next world-changing dream doesn't belong to them. It belongs to you. Your dream may not be to invent airplanes or end hunger. Maybe it's to start a school in your town, build a business, write a book, raise children who rise higher than you. That dream matters. Because when you dare to dream, and when you are willing to sacrifice for it, you don't just build a life. You build a legacy. So, are you ready to dream big enough, bold enough, and relentless enough to change the world? Chapter 11. Becoming the architect of your future. Most people live their lives as tenants. They rent their days, lease their decisions, and sublet their destinies. They hand over the blueprints of their lives to others, parents, bosses, culture, or society, and then wonder why their days feel like cages. But here's the truth. You are the architect of your future. Not luck, not fate, not the approval of others. You. And like any architect, you must first design the vision, then fight for it, brick by brick, day by day. The blueprint. Why so few draw it? When a skyscraper rises in a city, people stop and stare in awe. But no one sees the endless hours the architect spent hunched over plans before the first beam was laid. Life works the same way. Everyone admires the finished product, but forgets it began on a blank page with a vision. Why do so few draw the blueprint of their future? Because it's terrifying. It means taking responsibility instead of blaming circumstances. It means risking failure when the design doesn't work. It means rejecting the safe path that others already paved. So most people settle for prefab lives. They accept the houses someone else designed for them, the safe career, the acceptable dream, the normal life. But if you are reading these words, you are not most people. The story of Oprah Winfrey, redesigning life from rubble. Oprah's early life was chaos, poverty, abuse, rejection. By all odds, she should have ended up broken, invisible, trapped. But she refused to accept the blueprint life handed her. She sketched her own, one filled with influence, communication, and healing. She didn't just become a talk show host. She built an empire. Today, Oprah is more than a celebrity. She is proof that no matter how broken the foundation, you can design a new structure. Your past is not your architecture. It's just the soil you build on. The forgotten builder, My grandfather's blueprint. Let me take you into a quieter story. My grandfather never made the news, never wrote a book, never spoke on a stage. He was a carpenter in a small town. Life was hard. Work was scarce. But every morning, he rose with the belief that his children would live in a house he built with his own hands. He saved for years, hammering nails, cutting wood, and pouring his sweat into that dream. By the time his kids were grown, he had built not just a house, but a foundation for their lives, a place where they would never fear homelessness again. That house wasn't just wood and nails. It was a blueprint brought to life through persistence. He didn't change the world, but he changed the future of his family. That's what being the architect of your future looks like. Drawing a line no one else can see, then grinding until it's built. Step 1. Define your blueprint. An architect doesn't begin with bricks. They begin with vision. Ask yourself, what does my ideal life look like in 10 years? Who am I becoming? Not just what am I doing? What is the impact I want to leave behind? Too many people jump straight into action without design. They build staircases that lead nowhere, rooms they never use, careers that don't fit their soul. Defining your blueprint means daring to see it before it exists. The fire of Elon Musk, designing for Mars. Elon Musk was already wealthy when he decided his blueprint wasn't complete. He dreamed not of a bigger mansion, but of colonizing Mars. Sounds insane, right? Billions thought so. But here's the thing. Great architects design beyond Earth's gravity. They don't draw what is, they draw what could be. SpaceX rockets fail, explode, and burn. Critics laugh. But every launch brings the impossible closer to reality. Your dream doesn't need to be Mars. It just needs to be bold enough to scare you, because fear means you're designing beyond your comfort zone. Step 2. Tear down old walls. Before building, architects demolish. They tear down the structures that don't belong. In life, those walls are toxic beliefs, I'm not good enough. Toxic people, you'll never make it. Toxic habits, scrolling, procrastinating, excuses. Here's the raw truth. You can't build your future on rotten wood. If you want to rise, you must let go of the lies and patterns keeping you small. The unsung story, the single mother who rebuilt. In a small city, a single mother named Clara worked 2 jobs just to survive. For years, she carried the blueprint others handed her. Be grateful you're surviving. But Clara had a bigger vision. She enrolled in night classes, studied after putting her kids to bed, and fought exhaustion every day. 5 years later, she earned her nursing degree. Her blueprint wasn't survival anymore. It was stability, dignity, and opportunity for her children. Her story never made the headlines. But for her kids, she was the architect who built a whole new future. Step 3. Build relentlessly, brick by brick. Architects don't finish buildings in one day. They show up, lay foundations, fix mistakes, and keep going. Your dream requires the same relentlessness. It will feel slow. It will feel invisible. It will look like nothing is happening. But every brick counts. 1 page a day becomes a book. 1 workout at a time becomes strength. 1 small act of courage builds a fearless life. The key is consistency, showing up even when applause is absent, even when doubt screams. The blueprint outlives the builder. Architects know they may never see the full glory of their work. Cathedrals in Europe took centuries to complete. The builders who laid the first stones never saw the finished towers. But they built anyway. Your dream, your future, may outlive you. You may build something your children, your students, or your community will rise on long after you're gone. That's not tragedy. That's legacy. Closing fire. The pen is in your hand. Here's the explosive truth. The blueprint of your life is not waiting in anyone else's office. It is in your hands. Every choice you make today, what you read, who you listen to, how you spend your time, is a line drawn on the page. One day, you will stand inside the house you built with those choices. Will it be strong, beautiful, full of light? Or will it collapse because you let others draw it for you? You are not a tenant in life. You are not a renter of dreams. You are the architect, the designer, the builder. So pick up the pen, draft boldly, build relentlessly, and don't stop until the world is forced to stand in awe at what you create. Chapter 12. Living the Dream, Building the Legacy. Most people think success ends with applause, money, or recognition. They think it's about the cars in the garage, the size of the house, or the awards on the wall. But true dreamers know better. Living the dream isn't about the dream. It's about the legacy. Because one day, the applause fades. The trophies gather dust. The money circulates into other hands. What remains is the imprint you left on people's hearts and the world's foundation. Dreams fulfilled, legacies born. When Martin Luther King Jr. stood on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial in 1963 and declared, "I have a dream," he wasn't just speaking of his own life's ambition. He was laying bricks for a future he might never fully see. King's dream was brutally cut short when he was assassinated at just 39. He didn't live to see Barack Obama sworn in as the first black president of the United States, nor the waves of social progress that came decades later. But that's the essence of legacy. You may not live to sit under the shade of the trees you plant, but generations will. Dreamers live for something bigger than themselves. They fight battles they might not win in their lifetime because they believe in a world that must exist. The quiet legacy, a teacher's impact. Not every legacy shakes nations. Some legacies whisper, yet they echo forever. There was a teacher named Ms. Thompson in a small-town school. She wasn't famous. She never published a book. She never spoke to crowds larger than her classroom. But she saw potential in a broken boy named James who everyone else had written off. His clothes were torn, his grades were terrible, and he rarely spoke. Others thought he'd amount to nothing. But Ms. Thompson refused to let the world define him. She spent extra hours tutoring him, encouraging him, pushing him to believe he was worth more than his circumstances. James grew up to become a doctor, and every patient he healed, every life he saved, carried Ms. Thompson's fingerprints. That's legacy. You don't need a spotlight to build one. You just need courage, faith, and persistence in your dream of lifting others. The pain of living without a legacy. There's another truth here, a darker one. Many people achieve, but leave nothing behind. They climb corporate ladders, stack wealth, and live lavishly, but when they're gone, the world shrugs. Their names fade. Their work dies with them. Because legacy is not about what you take. It's about what you leave. Living the dream without building a legacy is like writing a book and erasing the final chapter. It ends incomplete. The unsung builder, Rosa's story. Let me tell you about Rosa, a woman I once met. She was a janitor at a hospital. For 30 years, she scrubbed floors and emptied trash cans. On the surface, it looked like just another job. But Rosa didn't see herself as just a janitor. She saw herself as part of the healing process. She smiled at patients, encouraged families in waiting rooms, and prayed quietly as she worked. Years later, dozens of nurses, doctors, and patients came to her retirement party. They spoke about how her presence had carried them through their hardest nights. One nurse even said, "I wouldn't have made it through nursing school if Rosa hadn't reminded me daily that I was meant for this." Rosa didn't build skyscrapers or launch companies. She built hope. That was her legacy. Living the dream means expanding it. Here's the paradox. When you finally reach your dream, it doesn't feel like an ending. It feels like a beginning. Because when you live your dream, you realize it was never about arriving. It was about what your dream unlocks for others. A musician doesn't just play for themselves. They inspire the next generation of artists. An entrepreneur doesn't just build a company. They create jobs, livelihoods, and opportunities. A parent doesn't just raise children. They shape future leaders, thinkers, and builders. Living the dream means turning the light outward. It's about asking, who else can I lift with what I've built? The legacy of Nelson Mandela. Mandela spent 27 years in prison. He could have emerged bitter, broken, or ready for revenge. Instead, he emerged with forgiveness, vision, and leadership that rebuilt a fractured nation. His legacy wasn't just ending apartheid. It was proving to the world that reconciliation is possible after the deepest wounds. Mandela lived his dream of a free South Africa. But more importantly, he built a legacy that continues to inspire peacemakers, freedom fighters, and leaders across the globe. The ordinary legacy, a father's sacrifice. My friend once told me about his father. His dad never went to college, never built a business, never wrote a book. He worked at a factory his entire life, coming home with sore hands and tired eyes. When my friend asked him why he worked so hard, his father said simply, "So you can have the opportunities one never did." That father lived his dream not through titles or fame, but through his son. Today, his son is a lawyer helping underprivileged families fight for justice. His father's fingerprints are all over his victories. That's legacy, when your dream becomes a seed for someone else's future. Legacy isn't built later, it's built now. Here's the myth. People think legacy happens at the end of life, when you're old, looking back. Wrong. Legacy is built every day, in every word you speak, in every choice you make, in every person you help or hurt. It's not carved in marble years from now. It's etched in the lives around you now. If you wait until the end to think about legacy, it will be too late. You must live it today, living larger than yourself. The greatest danger is living too small, dreaming only for yourself, fighting only for your comfort. Because the truth is, your dream was never meant to end with you. Think about the Wright brothers. They weren't just building a machine. They were building a new future of flight. Think about Malala Yousafzai. She wasn't just fighting for her education. She was fighting for millions of girls silenced around the world. Their dreams became movements because they refused to keep them small. Closing fire, the call to build your legacy. When you leave this world, people won't remember how many hours you worked, how many cars you drove, or how many vacations you took. They'll remember how you made them feel. They'll remember the courage you showed. They'll remember the barriers you broke and the dreams you built. So here is the charge. Live your dream fully, but don't stop there. Build your legacy. Teach. Mentor. Lift others. Create something that lasts beyond you. Plant seeds in soil you may never walk on. Because one day, when your story is told, it won't just be about you. It will be about the countless lives touched because you dared to dream and dared to build. You are not just a dreamer. You are not just a builder. You are a legacy in motion. So go. Live the dream. Build the legacy. And let the world never be the same because you were here.